So we're here with Laura from Robotics. We've been working with you and the team for like 4 years?
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she's graciously agreed to come hang out with us and talk about our work together because we've done quite a few projects.
Yes, we have.
Why don't we start with where we met?
Sure. So I believe it was the Growth Summit. Was it 2019?
It was, yeah.
It was 2019 Growth Summit. So this was right as we were first launching our product into the market. We had very little sort of brand awareness at the time. We had just started to roll out robots into schools here in South Carolina. We had a couple other states that were kind of coming on board, but very few. And we were, I was participating in a panel talking a little bit about AI and the introduction of different machine learning algorithms that we were using as a company, essentially to help accelerate learning, to provide a supportive tool for teachers that would then translate to really highly personalized learning for students. And so after the panel, we had been getting, we had just been getting an influx of a lot of marketing people, advertisers, PR people that were kind of reaching out and saying, hey, this sounds like a really cool product. This is a really cool, mission statement that your company has. We would love to, do the marketing for you. We'd love to create some assets and get your name out there, basically. We had tried to work with a few of those companies in the past. I think the general idea was, yes, we all understood that we needed some more visibility in the market, but it just wasn't. It never really yielded any kind of good results for us. What happened was we would give them the assets, we would tell them who we are, what our mission statement was as a company, what we wanted to do to support education and learning, and it turned into some kind of like a package, right? Like some kind of preformed, this is what we do for companies like your size and your field. This many assets, this many advertisements, this many PR events, this many blah, 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 and super sort of canned approach to telling, that story. And what we ultimately decided was that it just wasn't working. Like what we had to say about what we were doing was getting misinterpreted a lot. And we became sort of an AI robotics company that was devoid of any kind of personal mission, and for us as a team at the time, there were I think 10 of us on the team at the time, it was very personal. So after this Growth Summit experience and participating on the panel, you actually came up to me and introduced yourself and said, hey, my name's Chad Rochester, and I work with companies to essentially tell their stories. And it was something about that description of what you did and what your company was building that really resonated. And I think at that moment, I realized that was the key ingredient that had been missing, right? That we had a story to tell. We weren't just a package. We weren't just a solution in the market that was devoid of people. It was a people-centered story that needed to be told for us to really sort of have that visibility in the market that was true to who we are.
I'm glad you remember that version because it is the truth. But I remember like on my side, having just left education. And then I think literally like 2 days before, there was a big article about Avi, and like the funds that were, I don't know, the grants and all these things. And I remember just being like, this is some Orwellian kind of, taking
the
over.
Robots are coming.
Exactly. And then,
but
then I heard you speak and I was so compelled. I was like, oh, they're just telling the wrong story. Like it's not about Avi really. It's about supporting the teachers.
Exactly.
And so I told you, I went up to you and I said, you have a PR problem that I can help with, which I don't think I've ever been that bold towards anything, but I was just so like convinced. Like,
So true.
we just got to pivot the story and like, this is going to be great.
100%. And you
then,
nailed it. And whatever
yeah.
you said obviously resonated. And it was the beginning of a really wonderful journey for us as a company, because it caused me to spend more time talking about that story with our team and with the people that we interacted with. So it was a fantastic concomitance of events that you had just left education, that we had just started kind of emerging in the market, that we had participated in that panel.
Yeah, and it's kind of understanding the nuances of education in the schools and the
Definitely.
PLCs and the EOCs and all of those things, you know? Yeah, because the first project we did was Catawba County. It was like...
The first project was Rock Hill, I think.
No, we did one right before COVID. Do you remember where it was, Eric?
That was Gaffney.
Thank you. Yeah, there it is. So we did that one, yeah.
The first one was Gaffney, that's right.
Because I remember asking them, do you think robots are going to take over education?
That's right.
And she was like, I do not think that, you know?
Exactly.
Anyway, so yeah, and then COVID.
That's right. Well, then Shark Tank.
Yeah, then Shark Tank.
So you're right. So the very first project we worked on together was Gaffney. And that project was a good sort of entryway to a lot of the other projects we worked on together, because what ended up happening was the story that we started to create, it kind of took on a life of its own with the teachers that you interviewed, with the students that had their say on how they thought about Abby and learning with a robot, a social robot in their classroom. But it was immediately after that, I think, that we had COVID basically shut down schools. And a few months later, our Shark Tank episode aired for the first time.
Yeah.
And again, we were faced with this problem of telling the story, because the sharks on that show did not get it.
No, they didn't.
They didn't get it. That's okay. I mean, they can't get everything, right? They didn't get that. They certainly didn't quite understand the value prop of what we were doing. But it was also taped before COVID happened. So when it aired just after COVID shut down all the schools, it had a very different, it was received very differently from the audiences that saw it on national TV.
Yeah.
And so here it was, the sharks didn't quite get the value prop of it, but we're in a time now, post-COVID, or I guess not post-COVID, but in the midst of the height of COVID, where parents and teachers were seeing the episode and they were like, this could be really helpful, because we do need more teachers, and we do have a greater need now among students, because the support for them in person in class is not there. It can't be there right now. So we were faced again with the same problem. And then you stepped up and said, well, we can do something. We'll do something that captures, your experience of being on Shark Tank and where you are now. Because so much had happened from the time that we did that first video in Gaffney to the time that COVID shut down schools and we did the first Shark Tank episode aired.
And then there was like trying to pivot a little bit to like supporting your student at home.
That's right.
Because and so you gave us an obby and we went to my house with my kiddos and we shot stuff so we could get that content.
Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Because again, it was like a continuation. It was like we had done chapter 1, Gaffney. Then all this stuff happened with COVID shutting schools down, a real, crisis in education, if we want to call it what it was, and what we're still emerging from. It was a crisis in education that caused people to kind of pivot how they thought about how are we going to get our kids, keep them up in terms of their education and their learning. That also, it caused us to take a step back and really think about what is it that we should be saying about Abby now? What is the right place? What's the right role for a tool like this technology to play for parents and for schools in the future? So having that ability to kind of say, hey, we're here for you, right? This tool can be used in a school, designed for a classroom, but if you're a parent and you need help, we're actively working on a home version to help support you. So, it was just the next chapter, which was like, okay, crisis in education, here we go. And now chapter 2 comes in where we say, and here's another chapter in the story of who we are as a company. We're not just a technology company for schools. We're a people-focused company. And if the people at home need this, that's what we're going to focus on creating and supporting. And if the people need it at school, when they do open up those schools again, that's what we're going to continue telling the story about. So it was like I said, a great timing to have that second video made right after Shark Tank.
Yeah, and like the trying to be intentional with, like you're saying, teachers' experiences, students' experiences, because something will come after Abby.
Right.
And Van Robotics will provide that. So it's like bigger than just one robot. Yeah, that's great. I'm trying to think of how have you seen the storytelling help the marketing? Yeah?
100%. 100%. I think with anything new in the market, there's a high risk that it could be misinterpreted or misunderstood. There could be, especially with innovative technologies, I think there's always going to be some amount of pushback. It's to be expected. I think that's healthy, right? I think that's a good thing in general. But I do think that the storytelling really helped us, as I said before, kind of help us in the very early stages define who we are as a team and have those conversations internally. Who are we? Who are we recruiting? We recruit a lot of former educators, a lot of retired teachers come to work for us. We recruit a lot of, software developers whose families are in education in some way, shape, or form. Parents are educators, sister, brother, educator, right? So we started having those conversations internally. And so the storytelling that you started with very early on helped us both internally kind of form our story more cohesively. And then it helped us tell it in a way that reached people in a much different manner than we had with the packaged marketing attempts that we had done in the past. That is a massive difference. And I can't underscore that enough, because I do think that at the end of the day, we're all sort of telling our stories. It may not be the story you want to tell, or somebody else may be telling your story if you don't take hold of it. And so it's really important to understand what it is, who you are, and what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, and have the proper mechanism to deliver that story. The proper, the proper sort of combination of words and audio and media and platforms to be able to tell that story to as many people as possible, right? And I think the storytelling that Pierson Collective has done for Van has really accelerated that process for us, because we didn't even know that we needed it, right? I mean, that's the key, is like, we weren't looking for you. It was a great, like I said, it was a wonderful concomitance of events that led to us meeting that day, and that helped us kind of grow as a company, and then, internally, and then actually grow as a company in the market. So yeah, I think it's had a huge impact.
Oh, that's great. I don't remember who said it, but customers buy your why. Like, so always continually talk about why you're doing something. But I feel like with anything education adjacent, that space, it's even more so, right? To get bought into that mission. Well, you guys made it easy to tell your story because you have a good story. So it was just like, let's make it sound and look cool,
Yeah. Well, and I just want to say, I want to add to that, because you just, wanted to make it sound and look cool. I've never worked with another company that's actually done all the things. Like, there's, the Pierson Collective is like a collective of like a handful of people, really talented people who do a lot of different things. So like, we just, we make our own music. what? We do all of our, media, all the assets we create in-house. We don't offload any of that. Like, it's just, I think that people probably don't realize how much you all do behind the scenes. And that's, to me, really remarkable. Because, people buy your why, yes. But the creation of the art that you guys make to tell people's stories is really impressive.
I don't know how to respond to that. So thank you so much. I'm looking at everyone else here,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we love the work, and so thanks for saying that. That means a lot. Yeah, we've hit everything. You've said so many wonderful things, so thank you. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Am I missing anything?
I think the part about not knowing that you need to tell your story, I think that I know a lot of other business owners that have no idea. Because I think, from my perspective, I went through the accelerator program, right? I went through the global startup accelerator program, where they they have, C-suite executives from Fortune 500, 100 companies coming in to tell you about telling your story. That was not part of that training or that sort of accelerator experience. So,
which is crazy to me.
It is crazy, and that's why I think, and I'm convinced that other companies may not know how crucial it is to know what your story is, to learn it if you don't know it, to really define it, and then to find a company like Pierson Collective to tell it really well and authentically. I just don't know that people really realize just how important that is.
Yeah, it seems so foundational. Obviously, this is the work we're in, so it's like hard to not see it as foundational. But like you're saying, if you're building something from nothing, and you're trying to communicate this idea to investors, other people,
definitely,
like you have to have it like crystal clear. And then we even find that when some people are like, "Oh, we want to do a video project," and we're kind of like, "Okay, cool."
Right.
And then we end up, we've almost with every client for the past 3 or 4 years, like helped them with their brand message on some level to then create the video.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like both and.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the other thing is, right, it's the flip side. One is you should know your story and tell it. But the other thing is, if you don't, the likelihood is that someone else will tell it for you. And it may not be the story that you want. It may not be true to who you are as a company. And that's a real risk. We had a very small taste of that early on when we got press about the robots kind of taking over. And it wasn't just us, right? Like we were kind of globbed in with a lot of other technology companies. But that's a story that can be told about your company. And if that's who you are, great. But if that's not, if you're not taking ownership of your story, chances are someone will. Someone somewhere will eventually tell your story for you. And I think that's an important and sobering reality as a new company. Yeah.
You would think like the C-suite people, like the big dogs they would lead with that.
I mean, I think they kind of assume that that's incorporated in most marketing companies.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've worked with a number of a variety, probably not a lot of them, but I've worked with enough of the, sort of more well-known, some of the more smaller mom and pop shop marketing companies. And I've never seen a commitment to storytelling the way Pierson Collective does. It's a really fundamentally different process. Like, your team will come in and kind of figure out, tell us a little bit about this, give us a little bit of perspective on what you're doing and who you're doing it for and why you're doing it. You have a way of capturing the why that's the process is just very different from other marketing companies where it's like, we have a checklist and, okay, so what are you selling and who are you selling it to? and who's using it? Are they your end, consumer, your end user? And so they go through a checklist, check, check, check. They get all the facts, and then they kind of amass some kind of, collection of assets that supposedly tells that story. It's a very, like I said, it's a fundamentally different process than what I've experienced with Pierson Collective.
I think ours is a little bit of alchemy where we're kind of like, we'll take that and we'll take this and we'll, figure it out together. But we spend that time in pre-production or getting to know you to make sure that message is going to resonate with what you're trying to do. I think one thing that's unique about you and Van Robotics is that after a few of those experiences, you're like, we're just going to do it ourselves. Our marketing, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought was like, that's great. I just think, thought that was really interesting where you're like, we're getting the assets. We have a general idea of the strategy. We're going to implement it ourselves.
Yeah.
Because that's not normally the case.
Right. Well, you get burned a few times. And
Right.
you realize, we should probably take ownership of this. And, well, we've been fortunate. I mean, we have really good people on the team. We have somebody new doing some of our marketing now that is leveraging a lot of the assets that your team has created. We wouldn't be in that position if we didn't have the suite of assets that we've been amassing over the last several years working with you. So we're equipped to do it. And now we have a better understanding for how it should be used to engage our community, right? The people that we serve and the people that we work with. So, so I think it's easier. Like looking back, I didn't have that perspective before. Mm-hmm. Having worked with a couple of marketing companies, I kind of understand the process a little bit better. And like anything else, it's not perfect, right? So we're always revisiting and revising, say, oh, that didn't work or that did work. But we're telling the story now. Yeah. I'm the captain now.
look at me, look at me, right? I'm the captain
exactly.
Now. Yeah, totally.
So, and that's good because that, that's not always the case with working with companies that are building your assets. They want to have some control over how you use them and when you use them. And, and I think that's, that could be limiting, especially for a company that has like a new product. It's not like an existing product that's been known in the market for some years. Yeah. We have kind of who's ever Googled, smart robot tutor for the classroom, right? Like that, people aren't looking for those necessarily until recently. So, so I think that's really important to have that ownership because we know probably better than anybody else how to reach our market.
And in theory, if all of the assets are telling the same story, then you can just use them. I don't want to say indiscriminately, but you can just use them. Right. Because they're all going to work together.
Exactly.
Because we've done, three lighthouses?
3 lighthouses, yep.
Which is where we go to schools, interview teachers and students, and that was all your idea. It's a really great idea.
Those are big events.
Yeah.
I know you all flew out to Kansas City this last time. That was a big investment of time and resources, and it just went so well. I think everyone that participated, and there were quite a few people, everyone from administrators to teachers and students, everyone who participated had so many great things to say about your team. Professionalism, the care to authenticity. No one felt like they were being told a script or like you have to say something within these guidelines. It was kind of like, here's a question that people would like to know about, and it was really well done. So those 3 Lighthouse District Award events were both for us as a company really pivotal because it enabled us to celebrate the successes of the schools we worked with while also saying, hey, and Abby played a part, right? Like these schools are doing some amazing things. Check them out. Listen to their own staff and their team talk about their school and their people. And they happen to be using Abby to support part of that journey. I think also, like I said, it only reinforces all the great talent that Pierson has, right? Because it's like people see you working and you don't have to tell them. This is what I always, as a mom, this is what I always tell my kids, right? I shouldn't have to tell people how great you are, right? Like that's on you. People, if you're being a great student or a great citizen or whatever, people should know that, right? People will know that about you. I don't, as your mom, I shouldn't have to advertise that or tell people that. And I feel like that's true with working with any quality company, any quality team. People know, right? People, when they work with you, they know. That's why we've been working with you all these years, right? That's why we keep coming back.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you've said so many nice, kind, wonderful things. I don't even know what to say except
All
thank
true.
you. Yeah. I
Yeah,
appreciate
of
it.
course. Any time we can support your team, your company, anything we can do. I mean, it's genuine.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I wish you guys all the success.
Thank you.
Yeah. As much of it as you can manage at a time.
With this current team,
Or as you grow, whatever you
Yeah,
decide to do,
yeah.
right? Whatever you all decide to do and how fast or how slow. I wish you all the success. I think you guys deserve it.
Thank you.
I mean, all your stuff will last a long time. So
Thanks. Yeah, I think that was the goal. Like with all of our clients, is like most videos I can think of, like Brick and Beam or something. That video will never not be true,
Right.
Like a lighthouse thing is never like, oh, we got to take that down now. It's like, no,
Right.
those students and those teachers found success at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Laura, thank you for being here. Thanks for the kind words. I think we're all blushing, so I appreciate
It's
it.
good. You should be. You all are amazing. Thank you for having me today.